Yes, you start out and you go down this side. And you go down this side. After we do the highway, and those of you who want to sit out there to see yourselves together, see So, you did a great job. Think hard so we can begin. Yes, ma'am. Let it go. Oh, we might as well stand. Yes. Yeah. We're just waiting.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome to one and all. I want to begin, as always, by embracing all that you bring with you to this place, all of your unique beliefs and background and lifestyle and experiences and differences. All that helps make you who you are is welcome here this morning. This is true for those who hear me say it authentically each Sunday, never ritualistically, but always authentically. As well as those who might be hearing it for the first time this morning, you're equally as welcome. And it's true, of course, for those of you who are streaming with us this morning as well. It's great to have you joining us, to know you're with us as well. So welcome to one and all. There may be a very special, some very special folks streaming with us today as well. our friends all the way in Felșaracos, Romania. This is our annual Partner Church weekend. We started with our Partner Church dinner last night and are having our Partner Church service today. For those who don't know about our Partner Church program, quick history. Unitarianism started in Eastern Europe, particularly in Transylvania, in the 16th century, roughly, and migrated around Europe, including here into the United States. But during the Cold War, we kind of got cut off from each other. And in many ways, we evolved in different directions during that time. And it wasn't until the fall of communism that after decades we were able to reconnect with one another. And that was through a partner church program that started in the late 80s by the Unitarian Universalist Association. And our congregation was one of the first to form a relationship through that program. And that's with our partners in Felșaracos, what is today Felșaracos, Romania. And we have had nearly 30 years now of an incredible friendship and relationship, being able to help each other in different ways, to be with each other in different ways, both across the waters, but also through visiting one another. We often have some folks from there come here to see us, and then on occasion, like we did last August, 7 of us went over there to be with them. So you'll hear a little bit more about that journey as we proceed during our service, but it's just been an incredible relationship because it helps us realize what I think is such an important message for our world, and that is that we really are one people. We're one people. One planet, one global neighborhood, and all of this segregation and separation is just a matrix that somebody made up. So I appreciate the opportunity to be part of a congregation that has a partner church relationship and can remind us all of that so poignantly. Speaking of the Unitarian Universalist Association, for those who haven't heard yet, our annual meeting, what we call the General Assembly of Unitarian Universalists from around the country, is going to be here in Spokane in June. All the Unitarians are coming here, so we don't have to go there for a change, wherever there is. And we're still looking for a couple of things. One, we want to kind of have a Spokane Unitarian Universalist Airbnb where we offer folks homestays in exchange for a small fee as part of a fundraising endeavor on behalf of our congregation. So if you have an extra place for people to stay in your home and you'd be willing to sign up for that, it would be greatly appreciated. There is a table in the back between service or after service that you could sign up for that and become part of the GA housing program. Also looking for volunteers for the General Assembly. And by the way, it's kind of pricey to register to be at the GA. It's $425. So, and we may have some scholarships to help with that, but one way you can get that paid for 100% is to become a volunteer. So visit the table in the back. Is Stephanie still here? Are you going to be personing the table back there? So see Stephanie in the back after the service, and she'll answer all the questions you have about this opportunity and more. So yeah, let's take just a few moments now to greet one another. And as I always like to say, authentically, not ritualistically, say hi to those that you look forward to seeing each Sunday, of course. I do hope you'll make some new friends today. And if you are joining us for the first time, please don't be shy. Thank you. And as always, there'll be more opportunity to visit with one another during our social hours, so do stay around for that. Let's move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
This is an excerpt from an article written at the First Universalist Unitarian Church of Warsaw. In the 16th century, Christian humanists in Poland and Transylvania studied the Bible closely. They could not find the orthodox dogma of the Trinity in the texts. Therefore, they affirmed the unity or oneness of God. Hence, they acquired the name Unitarian. The 16th century Unitarians preached and organized churches according to their own rational convictions in the face of overwhelming Orthodox opposition and persecution. They also advocated religious freedom to others. In Transylvania, now part of Romania, Unitarians persuaded the legislature to pass the Edict of Toleration. In the 17th and 18th centuries, radical reformers in Europe and America found both in the Bible and in their own hearts an unconditionally loving God. They believed that God would not deem any human being unworthy of divine love, and that salvation was for all. Because of this emphasis on universal salvation, they called themselves Universalists. Liberal Christians believe that human beings are free to heed an inner summons of conscience and character. To deny human freedom is to make God a tyrant and to undermine God-given human dignity.
Our first in-service hymn of the day is number 159. This is my song. Please rise as you're willing and able.
Country where my heart is.
Keep working on it. Keep talking.
Okay, so I will say things very loud.
Let's see if we get it working. Or you can stand up there until we get it working.
Okay, thank you. So before we get started with our story, I want to make sure you all know that in the back we're having a special fundraiser. There you'll notice some very strange envelopes posted up. The idea is that you pick an envelope and there's a number written on the front and you put cash or check of that amount in the envelope, and that money will go towards scholarships for families and youth who'd like to attend General Assembly. We want to make sure that everybody who would like to can participate. And now, I need the help of some of our older kids and our grown-ups to tell a story. You need to be able to read, and you need to be okay speaking into the mic. I've already recruited Todd, and I need 7 other volunteers. Okay, I have 3. 4, Sophia. Come on forward. We could. All right, Kelly, are you up for speaking? Awesome. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to give you each a script and a part. Start with Todd. And I'm going to give you a piece of tape, and you can tape your roll to your shirt. Okay, thank you for your patience. Ready? Our story takes place in the mid-1500s in the country of Hungary.
I'm Queen Isabella of Hungary. I've just had a baby. My husband, King John, is away fighting. Hungary is such a sad place to live right now. Everyone is fighting. My husband fights with kings from other countries. Groups of people within Hungary are fighting with other groups of people. A lot of the warning is about religion. I wish King John would stop fighting and come home to see our baby. I wish people would talk about their differences instead of trying to kill each other over them.
Unfortunately, King John died just 2 weeks after the baby was born. He never saw his son. Little baby Prince John Sigismund became the new king of Hungary.
All hail King John Sigismund of Hungary.
Well, King John Sigismund was obviously way too young to rule a country. Kings from other countries took most of Hungary away from John Sigismund and kept it for themselves.
I'm taking my baby to live in a small corner of the kingdom called Transylvania. I will teach him to be a wise ruler, and I will help him put an end to all of the fighting.
While the young king was growing up, the wars continued. In Transylvania, the followers of different religions kept fighting with each other. King Isabella died when John Sigismund was 19 years old. It was now all up to him to try to stop the wars.
What should we do? How can we stop the fighting?
One king, one country, one religion, just as they do in France and Spain. We must choose one religion for Transylvania. Everyone will have to follow it, and then we will have no more fighting.
I don't know. You know, my dear mother taught me that people should try to solve their differences by talking. I wonder, what if I invite people from different religions to my court to talk together?
And that's just what he did. King John Sigismund invited a number of preachers to his court for a conversation about religion.
I am a Calvinist preacher.
I'm a Catholic preacher.
I'm a Lutheran preacher. I'm a Greek Orthodox preacher.
Bravo!
I'm Francis David. I'm a Christian who believes that God is one and not three. Since I think God is a unity, not Trinity, some people call me a Unitarian.
Of course, preachers are great talkers. They talked on and on for days. Sometimes they argued, but they didn't fight.
Speaking of which, you've kept my lines very short in the script. Wow! I'm really impressed with Francis David, the Unitarian. He makes a lot of sense to me. I think I'm going to become a Unitarian too.
I say one king, one country, one religion.
I say we need not think alike to love alike.
One king, one country, one religion.
We need not to think alike to love alike.
Well, I could do what the nobles suggest and make everyone in Transylvania become Unitarian, like Francis David and me. But one of the things I like best about Francis David is that he says we don't need to all think alike.
King John Sigismund thought hard about what to do. He was still just a young man and had a big decision to make. Should he demand that everyone practice the religion that he had chosen for his own? Or should he let everyone choose for themselves?
I hereby issue an edict of religious toleration. I proclaim that every person can follow the religion of their own choosing. No one shall be reviled for their religion by anyone else. Francis David, I invite you to remain here to be my court preacher.
This is not quite a happily ever after story. King John Sigismund died at age 31 following a carriage accident. After his death, Unitarians were not always tolerated. Francis David was eventually imprisoned for his ideas, and he died in a dungeon. But because of King John Sigismund and Francis David, Unitarianism took hold in Transylvania, where it remains strong today. Unitarianism began with beliefs about the unity of God and also came to stand for religious freedom and tolerance. Thank you to our wonderful performers. And now, Sophia is going to help me light our children's chalice.
We light this second chalice so that as our children and youth go to their chapels, they carry the light of our flame with them. May it illuminate, inspire, and warm you as it does us. Today we have a special collection. Inside your order of service, you will find a small envelope which you may use for your contribution. You do not need to seal it since we reuse these envelopes. This morning's special collection is in support of our partner church in Felsoracos. Strengthening connections is the focus of our partner church program, especially in this year when our denomination's General Assembly will be here in Spokane. A few travelers from our church met the new minister of our partners in Felsoracos, the Reverend Zalan Palko, and his wife, also a minister, the Reverend Orsolia Farkas. This year's special collection is devoted to bringing them here so that we may all meet them and also so that they may meet with Unitarians from around the world. All of us will have the opportunity to broaden and deepen our understanding of our faith and our fellow Unitarians. If this ministry speaks to you, please contribute towards making it happen. We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which sustains this community and its mission to the larger world.
Thank you, Michelina. That was great. We're now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds. I did not receive any special request this week, so let's move right into that moment of silence that gives you an opportunity to think about those who are on your hearts and minds this morning. And as always, you'd be welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion.
For today's meditation, please let the words and music of this Transylvanian hymn lead you into the silence.
Thank you. For our reading today, I'm going to invite you to read with me from the back of the gray hymnal, number 651. Number 651. Share with a neighbor, please, if necessary. And I'm going to again ask the congregation to begin. And since we have the good fortune of having our choir with us today, and they've got wonderful, strong, supernatural projection abilities, we'll let them be our respondents, and then we'll all close on the last verse together. And again, number 651, and do notice that it says 4 billion cells. We're now up to a little more than 7 billion cells. So if you will, when 4 comes up, just change it to 7, okay? That would be more truthful. And do keep in mind that first part has two different paragraphs that are for our beginners, okay? All right, so that's a lot of instruction. You need me to go over it again? I am a single cell in a body of 7 billion cells. The body is humankind.
I am a single cell. My needs are individual, but they are not unique. I am interlocked with other human beings in the consequences of our actions, thoughts, and feelings. I will work for human unity and communities, for moral work and harmony with the order of the universe. Together we share the quest for a society of the whole equal to our needs. A society in which we need not live beneath our moral capacity, and in which justice has a life of its own.
We are single cells in a body of 7 billion cells. The body is humankind.
So our partner church is in Romania, the country of Romania, but the culture is Hungarian. We are singing for you today 2 Hungarian folk songs, The Handsome Butcher and Apple Apple. And you will hear at least 2 characters, and I think there's a secret third one that might come along. This is a kind of a love triangle.
Thanks again, guys. That was fantastic. Thank you, Deb. It's great. And we have it's an incredible choir, and thank you for your leadership. Yeah. So the ethnically Hungarian Trinitarians, like those of our partner church in Felșeracos, Romania, formerly Transylvania, live in a part of the world where there has been a 2,000-year history of near constant violence and upheaval. And so they are an oppressed people. Their land and their language of their land is no longer their own, and they have become a minority. They, in fact, relate to the stories that they have heard of American Indians in what has become the United States. Additionally, Eastern European Unitarians may not be Trinitarians, but they do consider themselves Christians who believe in God and that the Bible is the Word of God. So when speaking there last summer during our trip, I had to keep all of this in mind in order to offer a meaningful message to our partner church members, while also remaining true to my own beliefs, or lack thereof. I also had to keep it short in order to pause, if you can imagine, after each sentence, so that their minister, Reverend Zolan Palko, could translate what I was saying. So I am going to, this will be short, about half the length as usual, but don't worry, you're not getting out early. I have just a few photos I want to show you from the trip at the end of the service, and explain why I think they're poignant. So, as is their custom, I also had to preface my sermon with a brief scripture reading. They let me know that that was non-optional. So, here it is. Just as Jesus was coming up out of the water, he saw heaven being torn open and the Spirit descending on him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, "You are my Son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased." This verse is from the Gospel of Mark, the first written, the earliest of the four Gospels. And unlike the others, Matthew, Luke, and John, Mark does not have a birth narrative. In fact, it doesn't even have a resurrection narrative. It doesn't tell us that Jesus was born of a virgin, or that his heritage can be traced back to King David. It begins rather with his baptism as an adult, the baptism of an ordinary man, a human being, whom upon emerging from the water has an epiphany. He realizes no matter how much he has suffered in his life, no matter how unworthy as a fatherless child others have made him feel, no matter how much he has been excluded from society and treated like a nobody, no matter what anyone else says or thinks about him, he knows that he is a child of God. This was good news for Jesus. The good news that he wanted to share and tell everyone else about, especially those most oppressed and unjustly treated. He wanted everyone to have the same revelation that he had, for everybody to be able to say, "I am a child of God, and as a child of God, I am also a human being, a son of man, a child of humankind, and deserve to be treated with respect and compassion and fairness." This was the message Jesus' first followers heard and believed and were inspired to share with others. It was a human message, told by human beings, about the worthiness of humanity. It wasn't a story about raising the dead, but about raising up the living, those who had been downtrodden and left out. It was about lifting the spirits of the oppressed and the dignity of mankind, of humankind. As Jews Jesus and his followers were also Unitarian in their theology. In other words, they believed in only one God. They believed Jesus was a human being who, like all of us, is a child of God. They believed humanity is made in the image and likeness of God, and there is nothing that anybody can do to change that. They believe that all people are worthy to be treated with respect and compassion and fairness. Most Christians believed this for over 300 years. For the first 3 centuries, most Christians were also Unitarians, who believed in a human Jesus and his good news about humanity, that we are all children of God. But when Christianity became the Roman religion, the religion of polytheists, not Unitarians, of those who believed in many gods, not one God, they began worshiping Jesus as a God. This caused a debate in their society between those who believed Jesus was a great man adopted by God and those who believed that he was a God. Eventually, the Roman Emperor Constantine stepped in, assembled the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, and ordered it to resolve the conflict by declaring the Father and the Son to be homoousios, the Greek word meaning one substance. 55 years later, another church council added the Holy Spirit to the equation, and the doctrine of the Trinity was officially born, and Christianity's original belief in Unitarianism became illegal to even talk about. It remained almost unheard of for more than 1,000 years until Unitarianism and its humanist message rose again here in Hungary and Eastern Europe. The great social psychologist of the 20th century, Erich Fromm. Aren't you proud that I was able to take Erich Fromm all the way over to Transylvania with me? Erich Fromm wrote that the original concept of Christ was contained in the adoptionistic dogma, which said that God had adopted the man Jesus as his son. That is to say that a man, a human being, a suffering and a poor one, had become a God. You see, the original idea of Christianity had elevated all people, including especially those most oppressed and despised, as equals, because we are all children of God and thus sons and daughters of man. In other words, we're all human. We're all human beings. We're all part of one human family. But 1 year after Christianity was declared the official religion of the Roman Empire, Fromm says, the dogma was officially accepted that God and Jesus were identical, and the revolutionary idea of the elevation of humankind to God had been substituted for God's act of love to come down to man, as it were, and thus save him from his corruption. This emphasis, this new emphasis on the corruption of humanity, on the lowliness, our unworthiness, and innate selfishness and destructiveness grew during the Dark Ages, which is probably what made it so dark. While Unitarianism slept, the belief in a human Jesus with humanitarian teachings and the belief that we are all brothers and sisters because we are all children of God. Fortunately, Unitarianism awoke again in the 15th century when it was embraced by Hungarian Prince John Sigismund. And we always say Transylvanian king, but they clarified for me that it should be Hungarian prince because that's what they consider him. So Hungarian Prince John Sigismund and his bishop Francis David, or Ferenc David, right here in this land. Since then, we have struggled to again make the world aware of this beautiful truth, of this good news, that we are all created equal in the eyes of God, that everyone, no matter who they are, where they are from, or what their circumstances, are brothers and sisters. 2 winters ago, when we had the good fortune of having the Pito family, Elamir Yolanka and their sons Elamir and Arpad visit us in Spokane, Washington, we had a big snowstorm. Elamir and his sons offered to help me shovel and sweep the snow off of my walks. Before I knew it, they were shoveling and sweeping the snow away from every house in the neighborhood, from the homes of complete strangers. And that same morning, Elamir had already spent nearly an hour helping a driver whose car was stuck in the snow, a person he didn't know and couldn't speak with, so that she could get to work on time. This is the Unitarian way. The understanding that no matter where we are, who we are with, what language they speak, that we are all brothers and sisters. We are all neighbors and equals, and we must help and care for each other. As Unitarians, we believe in the humanity of Jesus, and because we believe in his humanity, we believe also in our own and in the humanity of every one of us. We may not believe in the Trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, but there is a Trinity that we do accept. It is the Trinity of self, of others, and of the earth. For all people, you, those around you, and every person and being on this planet truly are homoousios, made of one substance, humus, earth. A great Indian chief, Black Elk, once had a vision. He said, "I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round about beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And as he stood there looking down at the world, staring at it as if from the moon, seeing everything at once, he said that he saw in the center one mighty flowering tree, sheltering all the children of one mother and of one father, and I saw that it was holy." That's what the word holy means. Wholeness, oneness. This is what it means to be holy for Unitarians, to be whole, to be one with ourselves, one with all people, and one with our earth, our mother. This is our Trinity: self, others, and earth. We are all one substance, and it is our sacred work to love each other, to respect each other, and to care for each other. Amen. So I'm going to shift gears here just a little to some photos that I thought were really significant. Of course, I took a lot, but I wanted to give you some ideas of the journey. Now I'll move through them pretty quickly. This is the congregation after that church service in which they heard that sermon, and there was all sorts of weeping and accolades. And it's a very small congregation, and not a lot of folks could actually fit inside the church either. But keep in mind that the entire village it's a Unitarian village. And in many ways, their faith there is as much an ethnicity as it is a belief. You're kind of born a Unitarian, and you're born in a Unitarian village. So there's hundreds of people on their rolls, hundreds of people that actually contribute to their church, even though only a handful show up. And I wanted to show you this picture because this is their social hour after the service, which may not seem unusual, but it is unusual. It is not part of their tradition to have social hour, but it's something they learned from us, so that's part of the cultural exchange. One thing you will notice is that those congregating in this area are all women, and those congregating in this area seem to all be men, so they haven't quite got it down yet, but we're working on it. And this is Elamir Pitu, who of course, some of you met when he was here a couple of years ago with his family. He's the president of the congregation, and I'm showing this. He's quite the entrepreneur, and when he was here, he went to a woodworking business, and they had this wonderful machine that you could sort of take a project you'd already designed and trace over it, and the other end would carve out a new piece. And what a wonderful way to mass produce products. And so Elamir went back to his village and got a bunch of scrap parts, and he made one. And he's been making these beautiful dishes that look like the old Hungarian world. In fact, we have one. We had it last night at our dinner, and he's able to mass produce those and sell them, and they're quite popular. His brother lives nearby on a farm, and this is the very small, 200 square foot home or whatever he lives in, a tiny home. But I wanted to show you this because look at what's in front of that little shack and what's on top of it. It's got Tibetan or prayer flags and a solar panel, right? So we're not as different as we might think. We're exposed to one another and we influence one another both in our technologies and in our beliefs. And then this is the city of Alba. You can tell because there's a sign there that says Alba. When I was wondering the first service, they reminded me of that. And this church was the church that King Sigismund, who you heard about earlier, attended while he was king. Once the Catholics took over, they took the church back. But Sigismund, as a king, and his mother, the queen, are still entombed. There was some work going on, so we weren't able to get right up on them. You can see the scaffolding, but those two sepulchres are theirs. Sigismund to the left and Isabel to the right. Quite extraordinary to, as a Unitarian, to travel to an ancient land and kind of go to our spiritual or our holy sites, if you will. To hear that story that we heard in Children's Hour, and then to actually be there and to have it so physically real was a moving experience. And then we went to Torda, where the edict that you heard about in that story was where the debate took place, and then the edict was signed. And this is the first freedom of conscience act or edict that was, or law, if you will, that was ever instituted in human history, and it came from the Unitarians. It's quite extraordinary, and it happened in this church. And as soon as I looked down and saw all that light shining, it reminded me of this depiction of the debate of Torda, in which Ferenc David is portrayed in the light, and you can see it just shining on him. And as I looked down into the darkness of that sanctuary, I could just see him standing there leading that debate. So pretty moving experience. If you ever get to go there, I hope you'll go to our spiritual sites. And then in Diva, where indeed Ferenc David, after Sigismund died, he violated an innovation law. You weren't allowed to make innovations. It was illegal. So the Edict of Torda protected people from having to have one belief, but when Sigismund died, those who took over said, well, those who are currently under the law are protected, but no new ideas. And anybody who expresses new ideas, it's a crime. And so David said, hey, we got to quit praying to Christ. He's not a God, he's a human being. And they said, all right, that's it, put him in the dungeon, and he eventually sickened and died. And so we made a pilgrimage up there and had a small service by a local Unitarian minister. This is where thousands of Unitarians go every year for an annual pilgrimage, and you can actually look out one of the stone windows and see how big the city is down below. And it's kind of where I want to end on, is looking at the city very briefly. I just love taking shots like this when I go to a foreign country, because you can't tell it's a foreign country, right? And I just, to think of a city like this being bombed by U.S. bombs, or being at war with them, or facing hostilities and violence, to me, it's no different than if it were to happen in downtown Spokane. We're the same people, we're the same family, we're the same global neighborhood, the same little speck of the universe. And there are people just walking past billboards and driving down streets and walking in sandals and t-shirts and shorts and carrying backpacks going about their business. Speaking of business, there's a rent-a-car if you want to get around. I mean, this is our home, right? This is our neighborhood. And they care about the same things that we care about, including having the same concerns and worries for our planet. So there's an electric bus that is helping people get around. And then just two more photos. So this is the old, this is Cluj, I think. This is the old communist buildings. And so when you're traveling around this part of the world, the architecture is amazing, because you have the pre-communist architecture, which is very ornate and beautiful and nicely trimmed and usually in stone. It's just really beautiful old buildings that have lasted centuries. Then you have the communist buildings, and then you have the modern buildings. And the modern buildings they really, many of them do look like odd-shaped, asymmetrical art. And it's because, look at communist buildings, right? It's like we got to really stand out and be different and say, make a statement. Well, keep in mind that when communism went into Europe, seized power in Europe during the Bolshevik Revolution, these were people who believed in equality, right? That was their mantra. They were for the workers' rights, and they thought everybody should be treated the same. And so much so that they institutionalized sameness. And they built these buildings that were all the same. And everybody lived in the same thing, and you weren't even allowed to paint them. Everything was gray. And it's the same in our villages. And initially the houses were all gray. They weren't painted. And now if you go through the village, there's all of these bright, wild colors, right? We would not paint our homes those colors, but if you'd been in 60 years of communist rule, you would paint your house a bright color. It's like, hell yeah, I'm standing out. I'm going to express myself, because equality, you have to be free. We have to have freedom. It's not enough just to be the same. And I think about another statement that Fromm made that has stayed with me for all these years, that the problem today is that we equate sameness, that we equate equality with sameness rather than oneness. And that's exactly what happened here. It was like, we're going to be equal, and so we're going to make everybody the same in a stifled individual expression. And of course, we need equality. But equality needs to be oneness. It needs to be diversity, that we all have these diverse qualities that make us who we are, and none of that matters when it comes to being how we are treated by our society and by our culture. Not that we all have to be the same and speak the same tongue and have the same ideas. And what worries me is that the good intentions of the people who went in and created this system is similar to an undertone I find in our own country today, where there is almost this draconian bullying of language, where we all have to have the same ideas and say the correct things, or we get called out and we get silenced and we get embarrassed. And I'm afraid that we see this understandable but mistaken equating of equality with sameness rather than oneness happening in our country today by well-meaning people who really do want us to get past the injustices that have gone on in this country for far too long and continue to go on today. But let's not end up with these cold, dead boxes, because they're coffins. One of the other things that happened after the communism fell, and if you were to get close on these buildings, you'll see that just about human height, everywhere you go, all the walls have graffiti on them. Probably another act of rebellion. In fact, the tour guide, who was a communist and missed the good old communist days, let me know that in those days there'd be no graffiti on the walls. So I'm going to close with a shot of the type of graffiti that you might see and just leave it at that. Thank you.
We're going to close with a Unitarian hymn that was written by Norbert Chopek, who was a famous minister in Eastern Europe. He is the person that created the flower communion, which we sometimes do in this church. And I love this hymn because it's a questioning hymn. So please rise as you are able and sing Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, number 8.
The most important thing in your life right now is for you to find your own inner truth and follow it. I wrote the following comments for the All Little Nature Chapel. Whether or not we adhere to a specific set of beliefs, being true to ourselves is one of the essential achievements for which we must all strive, in order to lead a life that reflects our deepest aspirations. Believe in your own light. Namaste. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.